DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Steve, given the fact that you are a native Californian, like Bill Walton, raised there, and a basketball lifer, we were curious if you ever crossed paths or how often you crossed paths, and did you collect any Bill Walton stories along the way?
You know, our paths did cross, and we did. I did have an opportunity to not have anything lengthy conversations, but I knew him. I mean, I graduated in 1970 from high school, and he was at UCLA. And I remember going down there and watching practice. A friend of mine took me down there. I never had any real, personal interaction during games and things of that nature. Our paths crossed a couple times, but really not a relationship, but I'll tell you what, just reading everybody's thoughts, and he had such a zest and love for life, and I mean, he was such an eclectic guy, whether it's pop culture or it was just his relentless energy, and he's always so positive, and and obviously I watched him, I looked up to him, we were kind of peers in the sense that we kind of grew up in the same era at the same time. And but he just had so much infectious enthusiasm. I mean, he just he enjoyed every moment, and there's been such wonderful things said about him. And I just think, those are the guys. I followed Bill Russell. I mean, I followed Larry Bird. I mean, these are guys I looked up to as a kid. And I think everybody's very familiar with his kind of Jerry Garcia mentality and just singing with Jerry. And I mean, I thought Rick Carlisle, I don't know if it was after a game or one of the postseason games, but I loved what he said. He just said that, he competed for every moment in life to be the greatest and the best he could. And he always made you feel better. But when you start looking at his statistics and his game and, the Hall of Fame career that he had, and I mean, it's incredible. And it's not something he ever really talked about, but he always did make you feel. And meeting him a couple of times, he made me feel better about myself. And he didn't know who I was, and I was just introduced to him. But to see him pass, that is an iconic. He's just in the fabric of sports, and he's more than just an athlete. That's one thing. I mean, he's just more than an athlete. He had injuries he dealt with, but he lived life to the fullest. And I followed him and watched him, and I don't know anybody in California who wasn't a UCLA fan at that time. And so I did have a chance to watch him play and did meet him a couple of times, but it was not an occasion where we had a conversation, just a kind of handshake. And even just having that opportunity was a thrill for me. And then to watch his career and watch where he went with life, and he inspired a lot of people. I think it's going to be an amazing celebration when everyone gets together and talks about how they were touched, and just listening to Larry Bird and comments he's made, and Rick Carlisle, some of the comments he's made, just kind of, you can just feel the genuineness about him. And so it's a great loss to the basketball community, but to the world and his family. So I always followed him. I mean, his first two seasons, I don't think they lost a game. And back in those days, they only played 3 years. So I think I think they were 85 or 86-4. And so he had a lot of success. And as a two-time champion in the NBA, two-time MVP on the anniversary teams, he just had a zest for life, and he'll be greatly missed. But he touched a lot of people's lives. So, yeah, I wish I'd had the opportunity to get to know him like a lot of the people that have shared stories about him. But he's a pretty iconic figure.
He's one of these guys that makes you think, how can I live my life better? Which I think is something that, man, what a statement to make about another human being.
Yeah. You know what? He was authentic. I mean, he was not trying. I mean, that's who he was. That's some of the stuff that he made up. Everything that I've read about him over the last few days, and it's been fun to do that. He was real, and he wasn't there trying to grab attention but it's hard to be around him and his vibrant and positive attitude and not just feel the same thing. And, it's unfortunate because he had injuries and he might have played differently, but everybody I read about just said that, the things I remember him just being a really fierce competitor, having infectious enthusiasm, and just seemed to enjoy life day in and day out. Now, listen, I only saw the public life, and most of us did, but I'm sure that he had his moments, and I think when a player like he was, a champion, a great competitor, and having injuries and those kind of things, I know how difficult that can be. I mean, just being around this sport and seeing his, a transcendent guy who basketball was his, not just his only thing in his life, but it meant a lot to him. And so it was just nice, fun to reflect and go back to that time. I hadn't thought a lot about that time and watching UCLA. I remember as a coach, as a high school coach, my first year of coaching as a JV coach at Clovis West High School, Manny Fagundes, who was the head coach there, he'd been a long time coaching in Fresno and Clovis area in California, and he took me to meet John Wooden, and so that would, UCLA became a really special thing, and I actually had a chance to talk to him and spend a little bit of time with him, and that wasn't something that really ever happened again. But he took us down there to watch 2 practices, and then meet a lot of people. And I don't know if I knew I wanted to be a coach then. I mean, I was JV because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. But that's an experience I never forgot. Just to be around him, and I know the love that Bill had for his coach and for the players that he played with. That's the thing you love. I mean, you get a group of people together, former players, coaches, and no one's talking about wins and losses. They may be talking about a game that got away, but it's all about relationships. And he's as authentic as they were, and there's so many people like that in the world today. And it's fun to see that side of people and get to understand and know who they are. I mean, we watch these games and we watch these playoffs, and we don't really know, unless you've had a personal experience with them, you don't really know them that well. We see them as competitors and a passion for the game. But, they're fathers, they're husbands, they're friends, they have families, and it's kind of fun to hear and learn more about that, and it connects you with the players. And I think, with anything, the NBA, again, there's not as many players you might have in the NFL or professional baseball, but I think it's been really important to, as a fan, is to get to know and understand who these people are. We watch them play games, and people are critical when they lose and positive when they do well. But I think the NBA's done a great job of talking about relationships and just the integrity of the game and people and how you act. And that wasn't always the case in the NBA. And life's not perfect in this world, but mistakes will be made and people do things that they regret. But I think for the most part, the league is much better, and basketball is much better for having Bill Walton in it and the number of lives he touched.
Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN, with a college basketball Woj bomb just a few minutes ago. ESPN sources with Draft Express. Real Madrid's Egor Demin, a projected 2025 NBA draft lottery pick, is committed to BYU and Coach Kevin Young for the 2024-25 season. Demin's a highly skilled 6'9" Russian guard who will arrive as one of the most talented recruits in program history. What does his arrival, presumably as a one and done, we all assume, what does that mean for the program?
That's huge. I mean, what came to my mind immediately was Krasner Chosic's and the impact he had in life and at BYU. That was the first thing that came to me when I heard about this. And so, someone that's played overseas, that's been playing, in Europe and has had success there, and to get in there, that's a huge get. And it excites the fans. It's going to be interesting to see how he blends in with that team. But, wow, what a get, what a time. Everything seems to be falling in place. and a guy that's going to be so versatile where he can play inside, outside. And I've never seen him play, but it's from the little bit I have heard that, that's a huge piece for them going forward. And those kind of gets and those kinds of successes help a program long term. Anytime you have a player go to the league or anytime you have a player that is playing overseas, and we had a number of players at BYU when I was there that played overseas and had great experiences in life. I don't know anything about Egor except that I'm pretty sure that he was probably in a program at a young age, and he's had a chance to play against, older men, grown men who are stronger and bigger, and, just those kinds of experiences prepare you, he's prepared to play college basketball. There'll be some things he'll have to adjust to, but a guy that's going to probably be in the league a year from now says a lot about Coach Kevin Young and his experience in the NBA. And I know his brother is very involved in recruiting and just all of the insights that I've learned about him. Having a brother that is aware of players around the world is a kickstart for this whole thing. I mean, you can go out and, I was in Chicago, I was in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago and saw all the coaches and saw all the players, but there's not a lot of EuroLeague kind of guys in those places. And they just don't usually come over here and play when they're already so founded in what they're doing in Europe. So just a great get. Fun to be. I'm excited to see him play. And, this is the next level stuff. And that's why, Coach Young has been brought in. And he's surrounded himself with good assistants. He's got guys that are very experienced. And I couldn't be happier for them. And I'm excited to see him play and practice. And it just brings another dimension. The place is packed everywhere anyway. I mean, the Marriott Center has been full for a long time. There's always been great fan support. But this is another thing that's really exciting for the fan base. And everybody's going to be anxious to be able to learn more about him and see him. But congratulations to Kevin Young and staff and everybody that's been involved and kind of putting this team together. And don't let it be, unsaid. I mean, just getting Dallin Hall and Trevin Nell, and Dallin Hall and Richie Saunders, back in the fold. Hopefully a healthy Dawson Baker, getting Keita from the Wasatch and from the University of Utah. I mean, they've made themselves better. I don't know anything about Elijah Crawford. I know he committed to Stanford. I think that relationship with Brandon Dunson, the coach of BYU, probably had a lot to do with that. I think he was at Brewster Academy. And then Cody Kozlowski, another young man that was going to USC, and coaching changes there. So it sounds to me and looks, and I know they probably still have 2 or 3 scholarships, but they've gotten better here in the last month. And that a lot of that has to do with Kevin Young, his staff, BYU, the success they had, and being in the Big 12. So, when you get a one and done, that's what it is. And you'd rather have him for 1 year than no years. And so hopefully he comes in and he's ready and can really help the program.
Yeah, I think the one and done is sort of a double-edged sword, but it's like you've got to have them, because if you don't have them, then you're not recognized as a better program that puts guys into the NBA. And so you would. I mean, you look at, I think Arizona with Lute was slow to get there, and Krzyzewski, they were slow to go that route. Obviously, Calipari embraced it right from the start, but it's something that it even though it's just 35 games maybe, it goes beyond that, because then it feeds off itself in terms of, well, look what we did. This kid came here and got himself, the 10th pick, the 5th pick, whatever it is. That can be you too. So it's like, even though you'd prefer that they're there for multiple years, you got to have them, because then I think that leads to better recruiting down the road. Oh,
absolutely. I was just going to say, it just opens doors. I mean, he comes there, he has a good experience. There's hundreds of players playing in Europe that, younger players that can, probably have a dream of coming and playing the NBA someday. So you're absolutely right. It opens a door that if it's a year, hey, and BYU used to players going, on missions and going back and forth and doing things like that. That's something that BYU has addressed for a long time. having guys come in, having guys go away, for a time. So this isn't going to disrupt anything. It's part of the culture of BYU, where young men go on missions, they come back, and so this is not going to be any different. But you're absolutely right. It opens a door that allows them to connect with players that they could normally never get. And if BYU becomes a place where foreign players come, I think about Foose and the Tiki and some of the young men that have come from Africa that have been there. That's been a nice connection. And a lot of it's through Wasatch Academy and other schools. But at the end of the day, you cannot have enough sources of finding guys to play. And if you want to, you want to win a national championship, because I think that's where we're going. Can we get to the NC2As? Can we get to a Sweet 16? Can we get to an Elite Eight? These kind of steps are what open the door, and everybody dreams out. For anybody that's a BYU fan, are thinking, wow, we can get to the next level. And getting to the next level requires getting great players and then having staff that is a great culture in that program. And I think they've made a big step in taking that next step to being relevant in the NC2As. And even though we have been there a number of times as a program, BYU's had a lot of success there in getting there. There hasn't been a great deal of success in getting deep into the tournament. And this is one of those steps that takes you puts you on that path to get there and to get to another level. And, bringing an individual like Kevin Young in and his experiences and maturity that he has with basketball and the NBA around the world, connections that he has with guys who are already, I think he's put together a great staff, people that are trusted and have experienced, all on the same page. So kudos to President Reese, Tom Homo, Brian Santiago, and bringing Kevin here. It's the next level. It really is. I've read several articles recently about getting to the next level, and BYU has done that.
A 6'9" guard, a playmaker.
Magic Johnson?
The ability. Okay, let's go right to Magic. Start with Bill Walton, finish with Magic Johnson.
Exactly. Well,
the 70s and 80s in California. All right. But it just seems like the possibilities for the mismatches you can create are now endless.
Well, they are endless. And any time you can play the 1 to 4, at 6'8", he could play the 5 in the NCAA and with college basketball today. But he's a positionless type player, and the more of those types of guys you can get, the better they are. And I think that one of the real needs is I don't know if Elijah Crawford. I know he's a top 100 kid, and I know he's a good player. But that was one of the areas I really thought that, hey, we don't have any real depth at that position. So getting Crawford, getting Egor, and a guy that you figure probably can handle the ball in transition, he'll adjust to the rules of NC2A versus EuroLeague. But no, that it's nothing but good. And I think when you make this kind of, you make a commitment to pay someone more money than has ever been paid at BYU, probably in all sports. But you know what? You're going to look back at this thing in a year or two or three and go, wow, this was exactly who BYU needs to become really, really relevant in college basketball. And the good thing is these guys will recruit other people. That's what I found in recruiting, is that when a really good player commits, they have friends, they have connections, they have AAU coaches. All of a sudden you develop relationships with people maybe who you haven't had a chance to kind of meet and talk to and get to know. I mean, Kevin Young has not been around college basketball. He's probably not spent a lot of time. I mean, they're all aware of the top players in the world that would someday come to the league. But this just expedites the process when you can tag these kind of guys and actually sign them and get them to come to your program. I don't care if it's for a year or not. It's nothing but a positive thing going forward for BYU and for that staff. And what will happen too is the energy on that team. I mean, everybody's looking for playing time, and I get that. But I just think the energy that's going to be to have 8 or 9 guys that can play and be versatile in the positions they play. It makes. I mean, look at a Richie Saunders, who is he's not a 6'8" EuroLeague player, but he's a guy that can play multiple positions. Dawson Baker can play multiple positions. the more guard type players at 6'3" or 6'8" or whatever it is makes you better. You just have the versatility to put a team together that when you get in foul trouble, there's injuries, that you don't skip a beat. We've got somebody to take his place. And you just hope for it, keep everybody healthy. I can't wait to watch practice and kind of see what this team's going to look like in the next couple of months.
Steve, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us. Have a good week. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, fellas. Take care. Bye-bye.
Stevie Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, joining us right here on The Zone. Coming up next, everything you missed in this show will get you up to speed. Next, stay with us.